Welcome to Maple Leafs Man Advantage. I'm Hawkeye. If you saw my last video about the state of the current Toronto Maple Leafs, we're going to jump back into the time machine here again and go back into the 70s. I'll try not to be so gloom and doom, even though I was trying to be positive, not try and throw the sand around in that video. But I'm going to talk about the 1976 77 NHL season, how the Leafs fared, and well, what happened during the regular season generally, and a little bit about the playoffs as well. So I would say definitely if you like this video, I'd appreciate it to hit like, subscribe as well. That would be amazing to get some more subscribers. And I thank anyone out there who's seen even if just one of my videos or has liked it or continuing to watch my videos. I thank you very much. That gives me kind of the push to keep doing this, to talk about the Leafs generally and in general, but as well, if you want to comment on anything as well, it's always amazing to talk hockey, so go ahead and put some comments in there as well. So for the 1976-77 season, the Leafs were coming off a second round departure that saw them come close, ever so close, to slaying the beast that was the Philadelphia Flyers. They were quite a team at that time, you know, winning 2 Stanley Cups and everything like that, but unfortunately they weren't able to defeat the Flyers. Now, in addition, for this upcoming season, there were changes to the teams, as not one but 2 of them have relocated. For starters, the Kansas City Scouts were no longer in Kansas City. They've moved to Colorado, and we're now the Colorado Rockies. Now, they were before my time, the Colorado Rockies. I've certainly looked back and watched some of the old games they've played. And I gotta say, I always liked their jersey, their uniform. I always liked it. It was kind of sharp. I liked it. They didn't have very good teams in Colorado, much like Kansas City. But there you go. So I mentioned the Colorado Rockies. The Leafs had worked out a deal a couple of videos ago. So it was to this very team that had come out of Kansas City. Now, the California Golden Seals, who also were not very good, I think they had only made the playoffs once in their existence. They're moving as well. They're moved to Cleveland, and we're now known as the Cleveland Barons, and they're only there for maybe a couple of years as well. And they didn't really have very good teams either. But this was the first time a team in the NHL had really relocated since 1934. So that's quite a while ago, over 40 years, when the Ottawa Senators moved to St. Louis to become the St. Louis Eagles. This was also Clarence Campbell's final season as president of the NHL. And then the next season it will be John Ziegler, who I remember as a kid as the president of the NHL. He will be coming in for the next season. Now, for the regular season, it was Guy Lafleur who ended up winning the Art Ross. He had 136 points and 56 goals. His teammate Steve Shutt also had 60 goals as well. And this is the time period here where you might say Guy Lafleur may have been the best player on the planet. He was for 2 or 3 seasons, I think, as well as Marcel Dion, perhaps, just after him. But there was a time period where Lafleur was the man. And any old Montreal Canadian fans I talk to, older than me, who is your favorite player? They generally always say Guy Lafleur. He was quite a goal scorer and very flashy on the ice. Now, for the Leafs, we also saw the debuts of Mike Palmateer in net and Randy Carlyle on defense, as well as Brian Sutter and Bernie Federko for the St. Louis Blues. Now, this was also the last season of Pat Quinn, Jim Pappin, couple old Leafs, and Vic Hadfield. as well, the final season for those three in particular. This was also the season in which Leafs defenseman Ian Turnbull scored 5 goals. Remember, he's a defenseman on just 5 shots. It's going back a few years. I did see this game. I certainly wasn't alive at the time, but I was able to get watch it later, and it was pretty incredible game. I would compare it to probably Sittler's 10-point game. As wow, how did that one go in? Like, there was Lady Luck was on the side of Turnbull this night, and what's incredible is after he scored the 5 goals on 5 shots, he let one go from the point and it rang off the post. So he could have almost had 6 goals and 6 shots. Quite incredible there. That happened on February the 2nd, 1977, as the Leafs smoked the Detroit Red Wings 9-1, and the Red Wings were having an awful season. They were really bad at this point. Gordie Howe's gone. They're just looking for talent somewhere here. They got some guys on the team, but boy, oh boy, they were playing very bad in Detroit this season. Now, the playoffs were different this season. There were some changes made. And it may be closer, maybe just in my mind, to the period of the mid to late 90s through early 2000s. The playoff teams were ranked 1 through 12, so there was only 12 teams in the playoffs. But each leader of the division gets a bye into the second round. So they don't even have to play in the first round. First round is a best of 3. So it's not a long series. First 2 wins, boom, you win the series. So how those additional 8 teams play is 1 plays 8. So you see them 1 through 8. 1 plays 8, 2, 7, 3, 6, 4, 5. And there's your teams. Now the second round, once you get there, it's a best of 7, just like the semis and the finals, best of 7. And then the 4 winners of those 8 are then added to the 4 division leaders and reseeded 1 through 8. Here it does the same thing: 1, 8, 2, 7, on and on we go. So yeah. And it's what's interesting and what can happen is literally 2 teams from the same division could play each other for the Stanley Cup, or in the same conference could play each other in the Stanley Cup. And I admit I like that idea at times. At other times, it's good to have the East versus West, because sometimes those are the best teams. But sometimes the best teams are in the West or in the East, and the best series may not actually happen in the Stanley Cup final. But we had an absolute juggernaut this year in the Montreal Canadiens, who, boy oh boy, this group here, this is a dynasty, and once you're a dynasty, it's like you got to be put on the list as one of the best teams of all time. And we had it here with the Montreal Canadiens, coached by Scotty Bowman. They were a force out there. I didn't write down the record. Did I have it? But what's incredible, I believe they had more ties than losses. And they only had like 10 losses in the entire season. So it was pretty crazy. They were a force to be reckoned with. Ken Dryden and that. So they were definitely the team to look out for. So first, we're going to look around. I'm going to look around, share it with you, at some of these new teams and those divisions, and see how they fared out. First, we're going to take a look at the Smythe division, where the newly added Colorado Rockies are. This was a strange division for the season, as guess what? By the end of the season, none of these teams even had an even strength record. So they were all below 500, which is crazy. Leading the way in the Smythe, though, was the St. Louis Blues. They had 32 wins, 9 ties, and 73 points. Hey, back then, you were okay, middle-of-the-road team with that kind of getting in the 70s. You were a middle-of-the-road team. Nowadays, you'd be pretty bad, but they didn't have all those extra points floating around back then. So former Leaf and captain Gary Unger led the way with the Blues. He had 30 goals. He was also an All-Star this season. He had 57 points, but Bob McMillan, he did one better. He had 58 points. So with the squad, it was Bob Gassoff who did the muscling around. He had 254 penalty minutes. In that, the Blues had a few options, including 41-year-old Eddie Johnston, former Leaf, who had 13 wins, 5 ties, and a shutout. They also had 21-year-old Ed Stanowski. He had 10 wins and a tie. And finally, they had Doug Grant, who had 7 wins, 3 ties, and a shutout. So they had 3 different guys to go within the St. Louis net. In second place was the Minnesota North Stars. They had 23 wins, 18 ties, and 64 points. Not very good. Ernie Hickey led the squad. He had 30 goals. While 21-year-old All-Star Tim Young led the team with 66 assists and a cool 95 points. He was doing very well. Big tough guy in the squad may have been defenseman Dennis O'Brien. In net, they had Pete Lopresti, who had 13 wins, 10 ties, and 1 shutout, and Gary Smith, who had 10 wins, 8 ties, and a shutout as well. In third place was the quickly dropping Chicago Blackhawks, who had won the Smythe the previous season with 19 more points than the previous year, I might add. This season they had 26 wins, 11 ties, and just 63 points. They did still make the playoffs, though. They made it in by a hair. They had just 3 20 goal scorers in Ivan Boldarev, Darcy Rhoda. They both had 24. And Dickie Redmond, he had 22. Boldarev also led the squad with 38 assists and 62 points. To note, this is a big note, Bobby Orr was on the Chicago Blackhawks this season. Sadly, though, he only played 20 games, but he did have 23 points. And yeah, this was unfortunately the end of the road for Bobby. He was so young. Phil Russell hauled in 233 penalty minutes on defense and was the Hawks' lone All-Star this season as well. And that there was really only one man at Chicago, and maybe they would have been even worse if they didn't have this guy between the pipes, and that was Tony Esposito. He led the league with an incredible 69 games played, something that never really happens anymore, that many games. Yeah, it's a different game. There's a lot more movement going on in the net than before. But he had 25 wins, 8 ties, a .902 save percentage, and 2 shutouts. That's Tony Esposito. Now, sadly, just missing out of the playoffs due to one last win was the Vancouver Canucks. After making the playoffs for the first 2 times, they were bounced out again. Leading the team in goals was 21-year-old youngster Rick Blight, who I believe was a rookie or a second-year guy. He also led the team with 68 points. A couple of guys to watch out for were Harold Snaps. I remember him in Detroit when I was a kid, who was also an All-Star, and Dave Fortier. In that for the Canucks, they had 38-year-old Cesar Maniego, who had 17 wins, tied 9, and had 1 shutout. And they also had Kurt Ridley, who had 8 wins and 4 ties. So, in last place was the Colorado Rockies, coached by Johnny Wilson, who was the father of Ron Wilson, who later would coach the Leafs. They did have a 41 goal scorer in Wilf Paymont, who is also going to be a Leaf as well. I'll get to that at some point, that big trade. And he also led the club with 40 assists and 81 points. He was also an All-Star and a guy you need to keep an eye out for. There's definitely stories floating around about Wilf Paymont and how he had a bit of a hair trigger temper. Tracy Pratt, another guy to look out for on the Rockies. In that they had Michel Place, who won 12 games, tied 9, as well as former Leaf Doug Favell. He won 8, tied 4. For Colorado, it was a combo of things not working for them here. They were third worst in the league for goals for, even though they had a 40 goal scorer. So he was doing it, but it's like they weren't getting enough goals from elsewhere in the lineup likely. And they were also tied for third worst in goals against, so they couldn't keep the puck out of the net, and they couldn't score enough goals. So they had a goal differential of minus 81. Not good. Not absolutely brutal, but boy oh boy, you're going to be in last place likely with that kind of output. But it was the Detroit Red Wings, who I mentioned earlier. They were the worst in the league. They could only score 2.3 goals a game. Boy oh boy, you need like absolutely stellar defense to win. Their goal differential was minus 126. Absolutely awful. Things were getting really tough in Detroit right now. So the Leafs were still in the Adams division with the still powerful Boston Bruins and still powerful Buffalo Sabres. Guess what? This might seem like a broken record for the Leafs here, how the standings worked out, but in first place, it was the high-flying Boston Bruins, still coached by Don Cherry Grapes. It was Peter McNabb who led the squad with 38 goals. Jean Rattel was second on the squad. He had 33 goals. Yet he led the team with 61 assists and 94 points. Guys to watch out for here on defense. You had, well, not all defense, but you had Mike Milbury, Terry O'Reilly played up front, and Gary Doak. These were the tough boys here. In net for the Bruins, we had Jerry Cheevers. He had 30 wins, 5 ties, and 3 shutouts. Along with Gilles Gilbert, he had 18 wins, 3 ties, 1 shutout. And he had a nice 2.86 goals against average. Well done. Just going to take a drink of Java here. Oh yeah. With my Christmas coffee cup there. So in second place, Buffalo Sabres. They had 48 wins, 8 ties, and 104 points. Ex-Leaf Floyd Smith coached the squad. The man, the myth, the legend for the Sabres here was Gilbert Perreault. I don't know at this point, maybe in Buffalo, but I feel, boy oh boy, this guy doesn't, nobody talks about this guy. I've seen him play and whoa, this guy had a lot of skill. I couldn't imagine him playing in the league now. He would be, the way he played would work wonderfully now. He was a great player. Thing is, he never won a Stanley Cup, and maybe that's why nobody talks about him, unfortunately. No surprise, he was an all-star this year. He had 39 goals, 56 assists, and 95 points. He also led the NHL. He had 9 game winners. That is pretty decent, too. A couple of D-men to look out for in Buffalo were Jerry Korab and Lee Fogelin. In net was Jerry Desjardins, who had 31 wins, 6 ties, 3 shutouts, 900 save percentage, and a nice 2.64 goals against average. Along with Don Edwards, who had 16 wins, 2 ties, 2 shutouts, and a 2.52 goals against average, and he was a rookie as well, so they had a good combo in net for the Sabres. So in the Leafs, it was the Leafs in third place. They had 33 wins, 15 ties, and 81 points. Not bad. Coached by, still, the legend Red Kelly. And it was Lanny McDonald who's really breaking out here now with the Leafs. He had 46 goals. Boreas Salming had 66 assists. And both McDonald and his line mate center, Daryl Sittler, they both had 90 points as well. Tiger Williams led the NHL with penalty minutes. He had 338. But hey, don't forget about Pat Boutet as well. Guy to look out for there. A little shorter guy, but man, he liked to mix things up as well. So McDonald and Sittler, they ended up tied in 8th because they both have the same amount of points for scoring in the NHL with the Philadelphia Flyers, Bobby Clark. All three of them had 90 points. So that's not bad. To have two guys in the top 10, hey, that's positive. That's good goal scoring. That's going to help you out offensively. No doubt. And Lanny also led the NHL with 16 power play goals. Not bad. In that, there was Mike Palmateer, rookie, 23 wins, 8 ties, 4 shutouts, and a .904 save percentage. Wayne Thomas is still in Toronto, but he had 10 wins, 6 ties, and 1 shutout. So the other team in the Adams was the newly minted Cleveland Barons. They had 25 wins, 13 ties, and 63 points. Poor thing for Cleveland. If they were over in the Smythe, maybe they'd make the playoffs. But the man for Cleveland was Dennis Maruk. He had 28 goals, 40 assists, and 68 points. He was also an All-Star. And a couple of D-men to look out for in Cleveland were Len Frigg and Bob Stewart. In that for Cleveland, they had a few options. In Gilles Meloche, he had 19 wins, 6 ties, and 2 shutouts. And Gary Edwards, 4 wins, 3 ties, 2 shutouts. And they had another option in Gary Simmons, 2 wins, 4 ties, and 1 shutout. So Cleveland's got a team now, just not playing well enough. That's a really tough division for them. Same with the Leafs, to try and get her going. But I'm going to show you now my team for the 1976-77 season and go over how I think we're going to perform. And here we go. I'll get the screen going there. So top line, we still got Gillies, Sittler, Murphy, still got Hammerstrom, and then I got McNabb. I might put him, Matt McNabb, Trottier, my other 2 centers. That's a great group of centers right there, and young. I really like that. And you got some young wingers here, like Willie Plett, Paul Holmgren, Monahan, Settlebauer, Jansen. Those are young wingers as well. On defense, we got Solomon, Turnbull, McKinney. Those guys all were with the Leafs at this time, but we got Phil Russell, McEwen, rookie, and Bill Height. So I still got Danny Gare on the team. He was injured this year, played 35 games. I got Lemieux. I forgot to take him out. Pretend he's not there. But I got Reed Larson on defense here. He's going to play 14 games. Rookie Rowe, he's going to play 12. And there you go. And Boucher, another guy I'm going to get in a trade. I'll go over that in a sec. But in that, Bernie Prance playing a lot more games this year. And rookie Don Edwards. And it's going to be sort of passing the torch off, if you will. We'll see what happens. It worked that way for me, and having both those goalies this year. But yeah, Wayne Thomas, he would be on the team. I'm going to trade him away. I'm going to send him to Colorado. That's where Henry Boucher came from. It's not going to be a good trade. Like, I'm going to send Stan Jonathan, Wayne Thomas, Kurt Walker over to Colorado, get Boucher and a 2nd rounder and a 10th rounder. Colorado's flying there. And then Lampman, I'll get him from Washington, trade him for a 7th rounder, and then I'll throw... I didn't figure out everything, but there's a lot of guys that are going to be trading as well. Maybe to some of these lower seeded teams, trying to help them out a bit. But on goal, I got 3 guys. I traded Thomas, but I got 3 guys I'm putting in the minors. They didn't play much this year. Gordon McRae, Bob Sauvé, and Jim, I think it was Jim Petty. All 3 of those guys are going to be in the minors. See what next season brings. And there you have it. Yes, sir. So that's it. And then my team, as you saw there, can I go with it? 10, 20 goal scorers, not 140. As I talked about in my other video, the Leafs currently, like their top 3 goal scorers, have almost 43% of their goals. I'm sorry, that's too high. I know that's how hockey's played now. This team here, my top 3 scorers would have about like 28%. So the scoring is really wonderfully laid through that lineup. If you play them constantly, or just roll the lines, it may work. I think even back in this year, like the Montreal Canadiens, I think they were at like 38%, their top three scorers, and they had 250 goal scorers. So like that's really saying something. Their goal scoring was really spread out as well. I, 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 I don't know. Hockey's not played like that now because of. I'm going to blame the salary cap, because you got guys making $10 million, so they're going to get the ice time and all of that. Where salaries between these players may not have been quite as a jump in between perhaps back then as there is now. Whatever. That's the way the game's played now. But there you have it. And yeah, so that's the 1976-77 season. We'll see how it goes. And that's it. And currently right now, because my wife and I, we got a new computer, so we're looking at the other way. I used to film this way, now we're filming that way. I haven't got everything moved around. I still got my Leafs blanket in behind me, my Leafs cup over here. But I gotta start putting some Leaf stuff up on the walls here to get it more leafy for all you Leaf fans. But that's it. So I hope you have yourself a wonderful day. And until next time, that's right, go Leafs go!